All right, so today we're joined by Mr. Ben Prentiss of Prentiss Hockey Performance. Ben is a PICP Level 5 coach. He's was one of the top recommended coaches by Charles Poliquin. He's known primarily for his work with NHL superstars. He's coached many Stanley Cup champions. He's coached people on damn near every, if not every, NHL team at this point. As well as Olympic gold medalists, Stanley Cup champions, major award winners within the NHL. So, Ben, how would you give us a little bit more of a quick little synopsis of you?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm going on, this is my 25th year of being a strength and conditioning coach. I originally got involved with Charles in 19. I went to Colorado Springs in 1996, I believe. So I was introduced to him earlier than that, but that was my first internship with him. It was in 1996. I went on to open my own facility in 2000, and now we're 21 years later, or going on 21 years later of my gym. I was in the same facility for 16 years. And now for the past going on 5 years, I moved into a 10,000 square foot kind of ultimate facility. During that time, I'm on my 4th year as being a strength and conditioning consultant for the New York Rangers. I was the head of director of performance for Boston University's men's hockey team for 3.5 years. And I'm director of strength and conditioning for 3 or 4 different other high school hockey teams, as well as a prep school for the entire sports. So that's a little bit of what I've been doing.
All right, that's awesome. So what we're going to be kind of going through today are a series of not one specific topic of questions, but it's going to open up for coaches to have a wider range of questions. So the first one, since how he was the guy who put us into contact to get this put together, Mr. Tony Parra in the Dominican Republic. His question was, I heard on one of your interviews that you are using a programming method based on type of contraction, eccentric, concentric, isometric. Is it based on Cal Dietz' triphasic method or on Kirsten Thibodeau's method? What are the differences on your method, and what caused you to change your previous methodology?
Sure. I guess I can work backwards. The reason that's true, that is what I've used for the past 5 years. I've done that now. No, I'm not influenced by Cal Dietz's triphasic. Christian Thibodeau, I've spoke to numerous times. I used a Omni contraction system before I spoke to Christian, but I've spoke to him numerous times, and I've honed it, I guess I could say, based on Christian stuff. But it was really a matter of me coming through years and years and years and years of training athletes and trying to optimize what I believe is the best system. And I think this, as to me, is truly the best system. You know, all of the other guys you mentioned it sort of got their influences from Verkhoshansky and concepts from the Russians. But like anybody, I made it my own. So early on, I was using Charles's system of body part splits. Then I moved on to more of an upper and lower body split, more of a concurrent training system for years and years and years, which I still do. Excuse me, but the past 5 years, I moved on to the Omni contraction, and the reason being is that it made sense to me when I broke it down in training athletes, and when I look at that sport is played with all of those contractions. And it made sense to me to train those contractions. It also made sense to me because you're able to train the same exercises and get really good at them. And that way you can get strong in different positions in those exercises that are advantageous for sport, rather than sort of entertaining the athlete and hitting them with so many exercises that they're not able to get proficient at them. And especially when you're dealing with, this obviously is a once in a lifetime. We can talk about that later, but this is the only time in my life or anybody's where we've essentially had 2 off seasons back to back with these athletes, where normally we have 3 months. So within 3 to 4 months, I've quickly believed and realized that these athletes to take one block and lose all of those other qualities, to me, was too long. So that's why I went with a concurrent training system where you don't lose those qualities, where you're training them concurrently, and then fine tuning that into the Omni contractions, especially with hockey, and using all of the different ones in a week. So typically what we do now, again, for the past 5 years, and we hone it as the blocks go on, but typically we're doing a eccentric day, an isometric day, a plyometric day, and a concentric day. And though within that week, we can still change the concentric day into what we call a sled day, or we call it an ALC, an anaerobic lactic capacity day, depending on what phase they're on. We're using those different qualities as well. So, I deal with, strictly make my living dealing with athletes that, it's the most important thing to them, because they're getting paid and that's how they put food on their table. So to make a change, a simplest change as to an exercise has to be well thought out. And, we monitor and test daily, whether it's daily questionnaires, which is every single day, and weekly we have force plate jumps and timed 10-yard sprints, and monthly we can talk about it, but we do more. So we have months and months and months of data off ice as well as on ice to kind of back up the results that we've had.
All right, so you mentioned right at the end of the off ice and on ice. Are you also on the, I'm just curious about that myself, are you on the ice with them?
Yeah, well, so, again, for people that aren't familiar with the sport of hockey, they typically, there's power skating coaches, there's skill skating coaches, there's so many different on-ice skating coaches. For a strength coach to quote-unquote stay in his lane, and which I do. So what that means is they're still not proficient in understanding energy systems. So, we have what's called a 1080 sprint. It's a technology out of Sweden that's basically a robotic resistance that gauges stride length, watts, imbalances, and it can go the length of the ice. We can also do assisted sprinting or over speed sprinting if we want to. So we'll stick to energy systems on the ice, and we'll do 10-yard, which 10 meter for you guys, 9.1 meter, and we'll do different change of directions as the season goes on that kind of thing. So again, hockey, unlike most sports where the physical qualities, the past 5 to 10 years, to me, you have to also get them on the ice, because it's a different like any other sport. So to see them skate, to see how it's applied on the ice, and then to be able to understand that whatever you're doing in your programs has to be done solely for the sake of getting them better on the ice, whether that's more efficient stride length, stride rate, or just developing a better energy system. So we'll film them on the ice, we'll look at their stride, and then based on the sort of the program that I told you, we'll specifically give each guy, yes, we are fluent in the neurotransmitting courses and all of that, but it's more based on the force velocity curve and force velocity profiling of each guy. So each guy has, even though they could be training with 2, 3, up to 16 guys when we have teams, we'll still break it down to each guy is specific into what they're doing based on ice, force plate, sprinting, body fat, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's pretty cool that you use the 1080 on the ice. Because for anyone who's dealing with field sport athletes, the 1080 device works there as well. That's where I'm pretty sure that's where it actually originated.
Yeah.
Or was tracking.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a whole nother long conversation, but basically all of strength and conditioning is made for running sports. It's, that's why the knowledge of ice hockey is very minimal. And to this day, where people, especially the sports science nerds of the sport that like to come out and use all this data, there's still not a lot on hockey because it's all based on running. And as we all know, the friction coefficient is different. The impulse is different. So, for a strength coach to train a hockey player who truly doesn't understand, in my opinion, can't be, super proficient unless you really understand the demands of hockey. And that's not just sort of reading a book. It's more like seeing, one of the reasons I went to BU was to, as players like to say, ride the bus, but, I use the term, I like to ride the bus to make me a better strength coach, meaning watching over the course of 3.5 years, I must have, coached over, I think, 90 something games, and to be a part of 90 games and to be in the locker room in between periods and make adjustments with players and training them and trying different potentiation and warm-ups. Those are things that nobody can teach you and read in a book until you really are there with 27 guys and, you're in a hotel room and dealing with a player at 2:00 in the morning to try to get them ready for the next day and working with an athletic trainer and a coach. And so, all of those things go into making you a better strength coach. Yes, you need to be the smartest guy in the room, but as I always say, if you are the smartest guy in the room, but you can't relate to people and the players don't like you, you're not going to be able to relay your knowledge and be able to coach them. So, all of that goes into what we do.
All right, that's real good, especially right at the end, how you sum that up. You've got to get the players bought in, not just on what you know up here, but also how you relate to them here.
Yeah. Yeah. Charles, he used to preach and talk a lot about, respect of the athlete and getting their respect. And, a lot of times he would say, it doesn't matter whether or not they like you. And, I agree and I disagree, meaning I think now, especially young strength coaches, because again, the athletes out there are far and few between, and everybody wants to train athletes, and in their pursuit to do that, it's human nature. They want the athlete to like them, and they think that if they like them, then they'll be able to get them more, they'll listen to them more. When it's quite the opposite, where it's all about the respect of the athlete, and the way you garnish respect is by producing results. And especially, most high school kids don't even understand quality training. They can go to shitty trainers and not get results, but yet they might still be good on the ice and get them to a certain point. Or the real workouts might be too hard for them and they go somewhere else. But when you get to a certain level, when results are the only thing that matters, that's how you garnish respect. And you garnish respect not only by producing athletes, but by the way you handle yourself. And then it's not just, when you get to a certain level, it's not just about you, it's about the coaches that you're producing. So, I'm also proud of the fact that I've had 3 or 4 coaches that are now head strength coaches of different college teams. They've gone on to get jobs. We've got them good jobs. We've got high school guys working high school jobs. One of my old coaches is now a professor at a university. One of my other coaches is another professor in Newfoundland, where he has gone on to get his PhD. So, to me, it's not just about the athletes. When you want to sort of leave a legacy, it's also about being the proper coach to your, you know, not students, but to your coaches that work for you. So, you know, over the years, I don't know, I must have had over 25, 30 coaches that have worked for me, and currently, typically on a yearly basis, have 9 to 12 coaches. So, you know, being able to do that and then and take 12 interns or 10 interns in the summer is another thing to be able to teach them sort of our definition of the right way to train.
See, this leads right into another great question that just how you talked about legacy and kind of passing it on to the next generation is the top 5 concepts or systems that set apart a PICP 5 trainer above others.
Well, you know, over the years, to me, it sounds bad because I'm one of few that are, but to me, it truly is the hardest title in strength and conditioning to have, because if you look at the criteria, it's like nothing other. So, you know, anybody can study a book and take a weekend test and have a certification. But, you know, Charles, back when we went through this 5 stages, you know, the 1, 2, and 3, you have to have the practical exams, you had to go through the testing, and then to get 4 and 5, it takes years and years and years, and for most people, and it takes luck too, right? I mean, it's team sport. So there are a lot of great strength coaches out there that are on shitty teams and don't win, but that doesn't mean they're bad strength coaches. They're very smart. So you have to be lucky to have, you know, good athletes. So for me to have, you know, numerous athletes in track and field in the Olympics and multiple, I don't know, it's like 7 or 8 guys in hockey that were in the Olympics, and to medal in world championships, you know, that was luck, but it was also years and years and years of perseverance and hard work. So to get 4 and 5, you know, so to me, what are the top 5 that set? Well, first of all, it's perseverance and it's hard work and it's dedication, you know, things that, again, you can't just get on a weekend certification, and you have to maintain those. So maintaining them for most certifications is going to another weekend course to just show up. Now, to me, you're just you're mailing it in just, and by the way, any of these certifications, who's writing the curriculum is the biggest thing that I always say, because, you know, if you look at who's writing the curriculum, I'm here to tell you that most of it is completely irrelevant to what we're actually doing in the field. So, you know, Charles set up a system, to me, again, I'm biased, but there's never been anything like it. And, you know, to be a level 5, you know, obviously it doesn't exist anymore, but at the time, I think there was like 8 to 10 in the world. You know, and it was something that took me a long, long time that I'm still very proud of, because it's an accomplishment that's took a long, long time to do.
And then there's some people who get lucky and are able to qualify quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, again, it changed over the years, where when I first did it was a different system where it really took a long time to do. And I think it took me to get to level 4 with world championships. You know, I want to say the whole process probably took me 5 or 6 years from start to finish. Yeah. And then with that being said, you know, it's irrelevant in that it's good for, you know, all of us to talk about, but athletes could care less about it. You know, it means nothing to them. And it's more about continuing to do those things that we talked about that make good strength coaches. So to you to get to that point, it took you hard work and took dedication and took studying and all of these things to then apply into your athlete. And then it took, you know, you were lucky to get the athlete that you got, to have the opportunity, and then you were able to produce what you knew with him. So, and then it's about continuing to do that over and over and over again. So, since I got that years and years and years ago, I had more people in the Olympics since then. And, if there isn't ever another Olympics, I'm hoping to have 2 skeleton athletes in the next Winter Olympics, and hopefully some more hockey players if the NHL lets them go to the Olympics then. So it's something that I continue to strive for and continue to want to do, not for the title, but just because I'm trying to be at the highest level.
Okay, so that's something that doesn't matter what coach is watching this, doesn't matter about the qualification at the end of the day. If you want to be any kind of coach of worth their grain of salt, it's about the athlete and getting them a result, and you as a coach always wanting to get them that result of getting them to that highest level.
Yeah, it depends what kind of coach you want to be. Do you want to be a coach that you're just concerned about Instagram likes and you take your shirt off because you're lean and you get a high on likes, which won't make you any money, but it'll feed your ego? Or do you want to be a coach that is producing athletes and spending your time developing athletes and, what route you want to go? Because if your route is to be that way, then, you're going to have to go, you have to learn a lot, but then you also have to understand that a lot of the things that you're reading out there, I found out years ago that, I'm reading all of this stuff, but yet I'm training more athletes than the people that are writing this stuff, and that their application of it might not even be as good as mine. So I've always told young strength coaches, don't just, if you come spend a week with me to mentor, don't decide in a week that you're just going to listen to me. Go to me, go to whoever else, and then start scratching people off the list that you feel that you need to feed your information. And then at the end of the day, don't be a lifetime seminar taker. Be a lifetime learner, but don't be a lifetime seminar taker, because you have to get out into the field and actually apply the things that you want to do if you want to be a strength coach and if you want to train athletes. Because especially in these days, it's very hard and there are very few, and there's so many factors that go into it that, you truly have to, if you get that opportunity, be precise in what you're doing.
I can't say how much I love just that last statement right there. That was fucking awesome. I'll have to bleep that out now, Joy. All right, so you already kind of discussed really quick in the lead up to this that you just 4 years ago moved into a 10,000 square foot facility. So the question that came was how you organize and maximize your gym space to work out multiple clients with multiple trainers.
Well, are we talking pre or post? With COVID, it's even been more of a challenge, but so we'll talk about before that. Again, that's something that people can't teach you because they don't know. So at my old facility was 2,000 square feet, and we would do 500 1-hour sessions a week in the summertime. And so in a space where we would have 5 squat racks, we could have 40 people in there. And all of them were on different programs. And you can ask, Tony and Carlos and all these guys that have come and worked for me, can attest it's, if you can coach in that atmosphere, stepping over people and fighting for a rack or a bar and being able to finish the workout that's written, and do it well, you can pretty much train anywhere. But so, it comes from trial and error. Like there's no way to prepare for that. It became, first, if you're lucky enough to have that many athletes, then you have to be prepared to understand how to train them. Then when you're writing, so when I'm writing a program for 10 different coaches that are 10 across the board, I have to go, okay, if he's doing front foot elevated split squats, we only have 5 pulleys. So maybe I have to use dumbbells for this one. I'll have to go front foot elevated for this one. Well, this person's really tight in his hips, has to be front foot elevated. So then they'll go, this one is on its second phase, so I'll have them do Bulgarian, where this one has lack of mobility, so I'll have them front rack the barbell, where this one has no mobility, so I'll have them use a trap bar, open trap bar for the split squats. So there you go, there's your A. And then, okay, how am I gonna pair the A2? Okay, well, one guy can do rings, one guy can do semi-supinated, one guy can do palms down, one guy can do mixed grip, yada, yada. So it really takes that kind of thought process to put together a program. But what happens is the result is it's absolutely seamless and flawless. And when people come in, they're like, oh, things move really smoothly here. Yeah, well, it takes me on the average, to this day, it takes about 4 to 5 hours on a Sunday in the off season to write programs at the start of a block for everybody, because of all of those things. So, but if you take the time, because yeah, it can be done a lot easier, but that's lazy, and and I've never wanted the athlete to sacrifice quality. So it's always been about being able to space them out, but still utilize the right things that they want, utilizing equipment. And then when it comes to team training, understanding who's doing single leg as opposed to bilateral, how long each exercise takes, what kind of time under tension there is. So for young coaches that always come for work for me, that's the biggest mistake I've always seen, is that they'll take a program that should take 45 to 55 minutes and it takes them about an hour and a half, because they don't understand how to train multiple people at a time. They don't understand that certain tempos. They get flustered with trying to find equipment to put it away, not understanding how to utilize your athletes to take one side of the rack and put it away, to put the bar, to wipe it down. All of those things come into play that unless you've had, I've had roughly 250,000 hours in the gym, spent in the gym training people. So until you have that kind of experience, then you've seen pretty much every bad situation happen and how to deal with those situations. But, I think some of those things that I mentioned earlier can help people in the beginning to just be super prepared. And especially if you have 4 or 5 people at a time, or if you're training a team of 12. I mean, before COVID, I was going to a prep school by myself where I would train 27 guys on 6 racks right before they get on the ice. And you'd have to make that work, and understanding what exercises to do, not to do, understanding you're not training them for your ego where you're going to kill them because they're going on the ice, and that the ultimate goal, again, is to get them better on the ice. And young strength coaches want to probably crush people so they can feel like they're doing a good job, when it becomes about you, not the athlete. And, you have to remember, it's not about you. You're not trying to be a celebrity. It's about the athlete. And humility will get you a long, long way in being able to get them prepared.
That was awesome. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look here. What do we got next? So let's cover since how you were talking, kind of how you systemize things, the first couple of systems you use with each new athlete, common concepts that you focus on.
Say that again. Sorry.
So the first couple of systems that you use with each new athlete are common concepts that you focus on. It's not necessarily the greatest worded question. Let's focus on what are the common concepts that you focus on with your athletes.
Concepts, and I'm not sure I understand. So I mentioned the system that we use. I mentioned the days that we do, and then to kind of go over that a little further, that depending on the athlete. So what we do is, the further we go, it truly becomes paralysis by analysis, because we are striving to do things that nobody has done. We're striving to take all of this science and data, but actually write great programs and be specific from it. And nobody does that. Tons of people give data, give all these graphs, but they don't do anything with it. So for us, we're trying to take all this information and really optimize the athlete. So with that being said, we are looking at each athlete differently. So to be specific, if we look at an athlete that can trap bar deadlift 500 pounds, but has a 0.42 metric jump on the force plate, that's bad. Meaning that they're really strong but slow. You know, people that aren't testing, you're just basically, you know, giving yourself a pat on the back because that athlete is moving more weight. Well, that's not the end all be all. And for a lot of strength coaches, that seems to be, well, I did my job. This guy is super strong and he got this much stronger. Well, is he able to use that strength and express it through power? And that's something that most of the time they're not able to do. So we take the athlete and so if a guy's super strong, we'll deem him strong enough. And then maybe the days change where Monday, which would typically be eccentric, would then become strength speed or speed strength day later on in his phase where he's moving weight faster. Well, how do we know? So we're taking a squat and we're looking at it with our cameras. We have velocity-based cameras on every rack. And we're saying, okay, 0.9 is the speed that we want this to be we're working at. So you're not going to go heavier in weight until you get 0.9 worth speed. So we're able to look now and dictate the load by the speed, where normally you're dictating the load by the tempo. So
adjusting it on the force velocity.
So we're looking at the force velocity curve, making a force velocity profile based on, you can do it either off a sprint or we do it off of the force plate. And then we're factoring in neurotransmitters and basically giving these guys. So we'll have 3 guys, you know, for the sake of argument, squatting. One guy will be squatting heels elevated with a 6-second eccentric. And this is the same workout, so to speak. One guy is going to be using a compensatory action with bands. And then one guy could be doing high velocity, what we call rapid eccentrics. So he's going down really fast and trying to take the amortization and turn it around. So all 3 are giving you different qualities, but it's based on what they need. And if you sit down and the listeners, whoever is listening to this, actually put the mirror on yourself, who's doing that? Or who is that, you know, quote unquote experts that are out there, who's doing that? And the answer is nobody. You know, they're all using a concept or using a system that they're making and they're happy about because the guy is getting stronger. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to quantify what you're doing as a team sport. And the only thing as a strength coach that you can hang your hat on is your metrics in the gym. And if you're dealing with GMs and coaches and higher level people that you have to show all this data to, then you have to be able to tell them, hey, look, this is why we're doing it with this guy and this guy. And if you're dealing with the highest level high first round draft picks and all-stars and if you're dealing with on the Olympic stage, you know, these are things that you cannot mess up and you need to be able to quantify what you're doing. So, and then you go further into that based on, well, this guy's posterior chain is weaker than this one, but his knee flexors, and if you're muscle testing his semimembranosus or semitendinosus is weaker than his biceps femoris. So when he's doing eccentrics, he's going to put his feet this way because he's weak this way, or concentrically, he's fast this way, we're going to have his feet this way, and even the same on hip extension type work. So we're changing all of that based on their weaknesses to get them, and then we're testing them to see if they're getting better. And then we're looking at them on the ice. And then we're seeing, you know, in a weekly meeting with our staff, we're saying, well, what's wrong with this guy? Why can't we get him better? Is it recovery? Is 2 days too long for recovery? So then let's let's use 1 day off because 2 days his adrenaline isn't going and his cortisol is affected. So he needs the adrenaline. So let's do 1 day off. This guy doesn't, he needs 2 days off. So we're spending enormous amounts of time and effort in order to make things super simple. So to make something simple takes an enormous amount of time and effort underneath it to then produce something simple. But if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to others. Because it's like, if you're dealing with an Olympian who's getting ready for the Olympics, you can't screw that up. Because one screw up there, especially all you sprinting as the example, you mess up a little bit with your force distribution for the person, and now they're not coming out of the blocks at the same impulse and then getting the momentum going down the track. Instead of running 9.9, they ran 10.0. In order to make the final, you had to run 9.9. Well, you just miss out on not just making the final and the glory of that, you miss out on money, sponsorships, and all that comes back to us, the strength coach, because it was our job to get them ready. So to me, that makes a lot of sense because it all comes down to that.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in hockey with that, at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that's going to get the blame and you're not going to get much credit in the team sport, meaning the guys can always, even if they're not, they can just say, my legs are sore and tell the coach that their legs are sore. And of course, that's the worst thing in hockey when they go, my legs, I don't have juice in my legs. And they're going to blame it on you and what you did in the program. And then if you're scared and not confident as a strength coach and you're not going to have them do anything, then you're erring on the side of caution, and then they're going to get really weak and they're going to get hurt because of that. So you have to have the confidence and the experience to know that these exercises at certain times are not going to make them sore. And that's why using an Omni contraction system helps, because you're able to do isometrics at certain times where you know that that's not going to create a residual soreness, or use isokinetics in a certain time and know when to take eccentrics out of the equation or when to add them, and when to use heavy concentric work or use it for recovery. So that's another reason why I like the Omni contraction system.
That's awesome. So next question here is the main nutritional or supplementation advice that you give the majority of your athletes, the biggest bang for your buck things that you would recommend to your athletes.
Wow. I mean,
that's a tough one.
Well, number one, I would say to be lean, and I, that's why we use the 14 site system, which to me is the most accurate. I've measured it up against DEXA scans, and obviously it's based on the practitioner, and I've been doing that body fat for 25 years before it had a name. So to me, the research is there. You skate faster, you have a better VO2, you jump higher. I have research on the leaner athletes are faster and do those things. So, to hammer home, and again, whatever listeners are there, hockey players are not they are not the most impressive looking athletes in major sports. And most of them look like normal people, so to speak. And, most of them also don't have the inspiration to be worldly strong. They basically work out because they know they need it to help them better on their sport. But the more skilled guys seem to like working out even less. So understanding that, but then really hammering home that, showing them and understanding that being lean is one. So number one, being lean and holding them accountable for being lean. So, all right, well, how do you be lean? Well, you have to understand where each guy is different in how you're going to, obviously Charles was the best there is at this. So, I don't need to get into it too much, but, certain guys need to be, when I was in charge of the meals at BU, so we were able to dictate what we fed the team pre-game, during the game, post-workout shakes, and then post-game. So we were able to have certain guys eat a fast acting carb after, even before, understanding what kind of, if we wanted to give them beet juice before for certain guys, what they were going to eat between periods, and understanding which guys basically how their insulin is handling the carbohydrates, and doing that through the body fat. So, carbohydrate intake and how you use it, especially in season. Understanding that they're 18-year-old kids and they're going to be eating and or drinking late at night, and what that does, and how they get fatter during the season, which we did a research paper on while we were at BU, and the effects of goals against and goals scored based on how fat they got during the season, and what you can do because of practice time and the gym sessions to be able to keep them lean. Food and sleep is a big part of that. So supplementation isn't a huge part of it. We stick to the basics, which all of Charles's listeners would not know. But at that level, we're really getting into, we're looking at it based on, when they come to me for individual work, we're basing it on, they meet with a nutritionist that we have on staff, and that nutritionist is giving them a five-page hormonal profile questionnaire. Based on all of those, then we give them a diet. And if those people then still don't have results, which most of the time they do, then we get into cortisol or adrenal or all those things. But 8 out of 10 times, just changing the diet alone usually fixes the problem or fixes what it is. But sleep is a big thing with them, and especially in season, if they're taking anything to sleep, then we have to clean that up. So what we call sleep protocol, we give them sleep hygiene. We go over sleep hygiene and what to do before you go to sleep. But the basic supplements, and then how we manipulate carbohydrates, and then how we use protein in between, pre, peri, and post kind of thing.
That's a good way to round all that in together. Okay, so since you also brought up Charles in that, so what are the top few things that you regularly use that you learned from Charles?
They probably wouldn't be the things that were at his seminars, or most of the young listeners would have written down or taken notes. I mean, to me, I would say and I don't even know if he taught this or wrote this as one of his bullet points, but I would say probably the number one thing I remember, what stuck to me, is he said that the most important aspect of a strength coach is their observational skill. And that would be number one over anything that he said. And I truly believe that one. And in that, it kind of goes back on everything I just went on to talk about in terms of being in a weight room and understanding the ebbs and flows of a weight room, and looking at your athlete as your best monitoring tool rather than a force plate or a questionnaire, in terms of, are they ready to train today? Are they laughing? Are they ready to go? Can you tell? Are they hyped up, or are they lame? Do you need to cut the sets? Are they tired? And not relying on an apple or a whoop or anything like that, but being able to gauge the team or the athlete or the temperature of your room, being your weight room, truly, to me, is how you become a good coach. And then if you're a head strength coach, you have to gauge the temperature of your assistants coaches and make sure that they're motivating the athletes the right way, and then make sure they're teaching the lesson that you want to be taught that represents you and your brand or your team. So all of those things are under the umbrella of observational skills as the most important thing. So I would say that would be one for sure. Other things that resonate with me over the years is he used to, and I have done this for years and years and years, especially with hockey, is he said something like, the athlete that dorsiflexes the most wins. And meaning that having good ankle mobility and being able to really dorsiflex, getting that knee over the toe, whatever sport you're playing will allow you to get into a position to get more power and speed. So that was another one that sort of resonates with me, that again, probably isn't in his seminars, but something that, I took away more things at lunch and dinners or breakfast than, working for him over the years than sort of at his seminars. And then obviously his body fat system is a big play on what I've done. His constant pursuit of knowledge with reading and going to seminars and research. And then, of course, to this day, even with my system, being the first person to utilize agonist and antagonistic programming based on tempo and rest intervals. And truly, if guys want to get strong, being a coach that's being comfortable in the uncomfortable, meaning it's weird when you're just sitting there for a 3-minute rest with your athlete, but they have to understand that that's what they need to do to get strong or fast, and be able to do that. So time under tension, rest intervals, those seem like minute things now, but those didn't exist until Charles came around and sort of brought that to the forefront. So to this day, anybody that pairs exercises, whether they know it or not, got it from Charles. So I would say that's a big one as well.
Yeah, those 3-minute rest intervals can lead to some awkward silent moments at times where
and unless you've been there, you don't know.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about what's wrong with you or not?
Right, exactly.
Also, and it's funny it's not funny that they fail a set, but it's funny their reaction after they fail a set, because they get 3-4 minutes to sit there and think about it.
Yeah. Well,
you see them go through every.
That's part about
go through every
athlete. Yeah, knowing your athlete, where some athletes, regardless of if they're in a 2 to 4 rep range or whatever the case, might not be able to take that much rest because, again, they might be in their head too much, or that's a neurotransmitter. They might be, GABA or acetylcholine, where they need less rest. But for the most part, if you're looking for max speed, you're going to have that guy sit there for 3 minutes or so and stare at the walls.
It's just funny, though, if they actually fail a set and they still got another set or two after that, and they didn't fail it because they weren't strong enough. They failed it because they either got in their head too much, but you watch them go through the emotions of like, wow, like, I can't believe I did that. Then it's like, wait, this isn't better than me. And then you see them almost get angry at themselves. I've had one guy, he looks at the bar almost like he wants to tear the bar apart and just do terrible things to it. And then he's all of a sudden just like, goes from looking angry to perfectly calm, does the lift, and he could make 200 pounds and 500 pounds on a back squat look the exact same speed and everything. But it's just like, oh, look, you failed at it a second ago. Now it looks like it weighs nothing for you.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a good example, though, of you for your being good with your observational skills.
Oh, it's just fun to see that with some of them at times. Sometimes you just need to give them that, look, you can do this. Get out of your head.
Yeah.
All right. So the last actual question that came through, I'm actually surprised we got through all of these, is what you feel you are most known for as a coach.
Well, I guess that doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is what people, what your athletes think, what your coaches, what your general managers, not what you think. I would say, too many people have way too big of egos in this industry, and so I don't know what I'm known for. I mean, I guess I can only comment on what I hope people that I'm known for is a guy with a good heart that's willing to share his information and I sort of want to surround myself with like-minded people and give positive energy and try to preach the sort of system or the ways that I like to live my life in terms of working hard. If I'm not a guy with slogans, I'm not a slogan t-shirt guy. I've never liked any of that. But if you come to my gym, I have one slogan from Franklin Roosevelt that I've used, and it's in my gym, and I've always used it. It's walk softly and carry a big stick. And that's basically how I've wanted to live my life, is be humble, be quiet. If something is to be said good about you, let somebody else say it. Don't say it about yourself. And, I think one of the things that you can look at is the way a head strength coach treats his interns and treats the people that aren't as powerful or aren't as in a good situation as they are, and how they're willing to spend their time, and then how they're willing to handle adversity. And you can't gauge people, especially nowadays, based on when everything's going good. You need to judge them on how their character is when things are not good. So, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I'm concerned more with sort of being sort of under the radar in terms of national attention, but I'm concerned with that the hockey world and the athletes around know who I am, basically.
So kind of how you said there, walk softly, but carry the big stick.
Exactly.
All right. So as we kind of sum this up, what I've done with every one of the people I've had on one of these is give your one finger in the eye piece of advice based on everything we've gone over today that you would say would be the number one thing for coaches to kind of look at.
Well, I think I just said it. So, yeah,
all right.
That probably would be it. But because I think that sums it up. I think so. Study your ass off. Be humble in what you do. Don't get too carried away in thinking you're the reason that your athlete is where they are. You're a part of the team that's helping that athlete get better. Don't get too excited if you have success about reading your own press, and never, ever be content at where you are, because you can always be better. And there is no such thing as the world's best strength coach. So, don't get caught up with who's a guru and who's not a guru, and, listen to people that resonate with you, and as Bruce Lee said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not.
Yeah, that's actually perfect. So as we wrap this up, although you don't have Facebook because for some reason,
I do have Instagram.
But where can coaches?
I said I
you
do
have it, but do you really?
I do. It's a private Instagram, which we had just started because obviously people that know me, that I'm, loathe all of that social media. But what we do in our Instagram, obviously it's private, so we allow like-minded strength coaches on there that want to learn. And we just post videos. One thing differently is we actually have, I don't know how many posts we have, but every post is a different athlete. So it's showing that, number one, we have a lot of athletes. We're not just posting the same athlete over and over and over again. And every post we do is we're showing you why we do it. We're giving you research of it and the reasons for it. So it's not just, hey, look how awesome this is. So we do have an Instagram. I don't know how many people are listening, and don't be insulted if I don't let you in, but it's more about letting people in that are, again, sort of what I talk about, that want to learn, that want to get better, that want to hold a conversation and how we all get better to be better coaches. So I do have that, and I don't use Twitter anymore. I do have a Twitter account, but it directs people to the to the @Prentiss Hockey Instagram. and that's it. I mean, I do, if you look on that Instagram, I've done other podcasts that are on there. So there's a couple of podcasts on there, and, you know, we have seminars that we were going to teach, but because of COVID, you know, that's what I like to do more, is small seminars, or allow people to come to the gym and spend a week. Because, you know, when somebody, that's a question that a lot of young kids ask me, is like, what do you think of so-and-so? Or what do you think of this guy? And, you know, you can, it's pretty funny to me how people even give an answer, because, you know, I just met you, and if somebody said to me, well, what do you think of Tony as a coach? Now, how would I know? The only way you can judge a strength coach is if you see him in his gym or in his element for, I like to say, 3 days, because then you can get at least an opinion on how he's coaching, what his work ethic's like, what his system's like. And then you can also talk to the people that work for him, and you can get an idea of what he is. But to just off of one podcast or one interview or one article, you know, maybe that sparked your interest on that person. But, you know, all your people should understand that whenever you're interviewing somebody, they're giving you what they want you to hear. So it might not be what actually goes on. You know, and a lot of famous strength coaches aren't actually training as many people as they say they are, or they're not doing the concepts that they say they are. So to really see what they're doing, you know, what they're saying is true, you know, ask to do a mentorship or pay for a mentorship or whatever the case may be, if you're really want to see what coach is doing, or a Skype or whatever the case may be.
So that actually covered exactly the next thing I was going to mention, is if you're wanting to get in touch with Ben to do internships, consultations, as he just laid it out there, he does them. He's also going to be teaching some courses in the future. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll make sure that we get the information from Ben about those, that people can know. Since how he's not on social media putting it out there as much as other educational platforms are, but we will make sure that Ben's information does get out to people so people can learn from him. Since how he is he can give you a humble brag and actually be truly humble with it. But this way, we can actually get it so that people know more Ben Prentiss, the coach, and his system, and go learn it. So with that, I would like to thank you very much, Ben, for taking the past hour to do this, especially how quickly we were able to put this together. Other than that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on.